Hello everybody out there, it is January and this is another episode of From the Crow's Mouth. As always, I'm your host, Mitch Cumming, lead guitar player, lead singer, lead songwriter for the band Stone Cold Crows. And today you're probably wondering, what are we talking about in another lockdown? What's the band doing? There's no income coming in. Should I just be sitting on my ass playing video games, waiting for everything to go back to normal? Well, even if I had tried that route, by now you got to be thinking, if you live where we do in Ontario, that's not really working a whole lot because we're on year 3 of this fun time. So you got to keep busy somehow. So how have I been keeping busy? How's Bryson been keeping busy? What is going on with Stone Cold Crows, and how are we going to make 2022 even better than our debut year 2021? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly what we've been up to, and I'm going to tell you why we have been up to it. So maybe you're just interested in the workings of what goes on in a band, from behind the scenes, the creation process, and a little bit of the method and reasoning behind the madness. And maybe if you're in a band yourself, you're kind of curious, so you want some ideas of what you can be doing to grow while everything is stagnant, because live shows have not been a thing for the most part. Some of my favorite bands now, I've seen them reschedule their tours like 5 times. Tours that should have been happening in 2020 are now being rescheduled for the end of 2023. So that is a lot of planning and revenue and everything down the toilet. But as always, before we really break off into that, let's sip on something delicious. Look at this beauty. This is a strawberry gin smash. And there's a lot of ingredients in this one, a little bit of extra steps, so the video is a little bit longer than normal. But trust me, it's worth it. So I'm going to show you how to make one, and then we're going to talk shop. So cheers, and let's do that. Hey everybody, welcome to the rock and roll bartender segment of From the Crow's Mouth. As always, I'm your host, Mitch Cumming, lead singer, guitar player for the band. Today, on our next episode of January, that is January, but we're making all gin drinks. Today I'm going to show you how to make a summer favorite take on the gin smash cocktail. It's going to be a strawberry gin smash. Now, a smash cocktail, there's a lot of different variations of them. There's not exactly a whole lot of definition as to what makes it a smash, but I would suspect that it is generally the fact that most smash cocktails use an herb or a fruit that is muddled to get the flavor of the drink, and this will be no exception. So pay attention, because I'm going to go through the ingredients for this one, because there's a lot of them. So you are going to want, for this drink, fresh strawberries, 5 or 6 of them. I cut a bunch of bigger ones up into smaller pieces, just going to make it easier to smash up real nice. This one we're going to use mint. Grab a handful of mint leaves, but I would say 5 are probably good. You don't need too much mint, because it is a very potent herb, but adjust to flavor for your liking. We're going to use honey instead of simple syrup, because it really adds that little bit of extra flavor to this one, and a lot of drinks would just use simple syrup, but we're going to use honey to pair well with some of the other flavors. Lemon juice, as always, if you got fresh lemons, use those, but we'll use some lemon juice here. Goes really well with strawberry, actually. And instead of club soda, we're going to use ginger beer. If you remember from earlier episodes, I really like this brand, the Great Gentleman. It's got a little bit of extra kick on the spice level, and that is a personal preference for me. You can use any ginger beer you find. Ginger beer, not ginger ale. And of course, it's a gin smash, so just like last week, I'm going to be using this Tanqueray Rancor Lime. I made this drink with a couple different gins now, but I generally find I like citrusy ones over floral or more herbaceous like juniper forward. So this gin actually works really nice for this drink. So without further ado, let's start. I suppose I should tell you, make sure that you have a few things like a muddler or something, some kind of wooden spoon or something you can crush with, because that is the first step. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw all those strawberries into our cocktail shaker here, and you're going to essentially mash them up real good. Now, a lot of times when you're making a drink like this, it will say, and in fact even in my own recipe I say to throw everything in here at a time, but there is a difference in technique to how you would muddle fruit versus herbs. In fact, if you muddle herbs too forcefully, which you generally want to do for fruit to really get the juice extracted, it will make the herbs taste a lot more bitter instead of the flavors you want to extract. So in this case what I'm doing is I'm going to muddle up the strawberries pretty good first before I throw the mint in, so that I don't have to crush up the mint so hard and make it really bitter, because you want that fresh mint flavor. So, there we go. Muddle that up real good. Okay, so I'm going to take our mint here. Make sure you save a strawberry and some mint for garnish afterwards if you want to make the drink look nice and pretty. And on top of that, we're going to take in half an ounce of our lemon juice to muddle in there as well. And a teaspoon of honey. Muddled that with everything else at the same time, of course. I'm still waiting to do the mint, but at this point the strawberries are pretty mashed up. So we'll get a nice teaspoon of honey here. Ooh, look at that. And in it will go. There. Okay. Let's see, our mint is already sticking to it. And gently mash that up. You can see even just a slight turn of the wrist. Nothing too crazy. Press the mint into the tin or to the cocktail shaker. And oh yeah, I can already see that. So we've got our muddling concoction all done there. Oops. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add 2 ounces of gin. There we go. And you'll notice that there was no ice in this cocktail shaker. Now I do have ice in this glass here, but we're not going to shake this drink with ice. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to stir it all together. And if you've got a nice cocktail spoon like this, it allows for an easy stir in a cocktail shaker, but of course you can stir essentially with anything. You just want to mix it up nice and good. There we go. It's all nice and blended. And of course, just take your strainer out here. You can give it a little swirl if you want. Make sure it mixes up a little extra. And strain that liquid. As you can see, look at that color you get from the berries into the glass. Usually about 2/3 of the glass is how much you should expect with all the liquids in there. Just to leave enough room to top it. And of course, last but not least, we will top it with some ginger beer. Now this time I remember to have one of these on hand, because these are pop-top bottles. So you'll be able to make a few of these if you have your herbs on hand, because as you can see, there's not a whole lot of ginger beer in there. It's just for a little bit of extra flavor. And to garnish, I've cut a strawberry, and we've got a sprig of mint. And there you go. It might be January here, but it's summer in this glass. So cheers, and we will see you on the music part of the podcast. Oh. Okay, we are back, and you've got one of these pretty delicious looking things here in your hand, or maybe you're gonna go get one, or you're gonna drink what we had last week, or maybe you're gonna take a peruse of one of the older recipes because you don't like gin and you want to drink rum. I don't know. Whatever you decide, I'm pretty happy where I am right now. Seriously, this thing is really good. And actually, that's one of the things I'm going to talk to you about today. So realistically though, where do we start? How are bands doing right now? This has been a really trying time for anybody in a lot of different industries, the restaurant, bar industry, the tourism industry, the flight industry, the music industry. Man, I went and saw Alan Doyle, the former lead singer of the band Great Big Sea, pretty cool band from the East Coast, 2 months ago now, and that we had tickets to go to that show over 2 years ago, and that's how long it took to finally be able to see. And he managed to get that date rebooked and play in Ottawa in that little pocket of where shows were actually allowed to happen again. So I am a huge music fan, but I have not been buying concert tickets. And I will tell you why I have not been buying concert tickets, because unless the band is playing literally within a couple of weeks from when I buy tickets, I don't even think, I'm just not counting on it happening anymore. And it's a sad reality. So that gets to today's topic, is how are bands surviving? If it's your full-time job, which I do know many musicians who that's how they paid their bills, I can't imagine what they're going through for this period, because live performances are out the window, and that is where most bands make their money. There are musicians out there in the world that live quite comfortably off of royalties, but I'm going to tell you that is a fraction of musicians in the world, because royalty payments through what you get them for now on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, they're pennies. Literally, you would have to listen to our album 40 times a day for a long time each, for us to see any kind of real revenue, considering how much it costs to make music, and then you have to register that music with a distributor, and you got to pay for artwork, and if you decide to do a music video, that's not free. Photo shoots aren't free. Even what you want to wear in the photo shoot is generally not free. There's so many expenses that add up to the cost of being a musician, and right now there's not a lot of revenue streams. So how do you grow? What are we doing to try and keep our spirits up? And I say spirits up, pun intended, while this whole thing's going on? Because now that we're out in the public, it's not like before where we could just bide our time in the shadows and wait to release something, and if we had to push it back a little, nobody knows who we are yet, so who cares? But eventually, you got to have something new going on or people lose interest, because that is the reality of the world today. So what Stone Cold Crows have been up to, and we have some stuff coming down the pipeline that we are ready to release, and we're going to time it well, but we have been experimenting a little bit on a limited budget with growing our fan base through targeted ads. So I don't know if you've ever seen them. You definitely have seen them. Anytime you're on Facebook or Instagram, whatever, the little sponsored message comes up, somebody's paying for you to see that. And most of the time, you just scroll through it. But advertising is it's very subtle. You have to see something 7-10 times before you might say, hey, what, I keep hearing about this at different points of contact. I'm going to check it out. And it's really difficult for us, not playing live and being in two different cities and everything, and the social atmosphere for music is shut down. So how do we get our name out there? Getting people to take any kind of action to share your stuff is difficult. So we're experimenting a little bit with targeted ads. So if you're out there as a musician, there are tons of tutorials out there, some paid, some not paid, that will show you a little bit how to do it, and it's going to take some tinkering, and that's what we're trying to do, just so that when we do get to finally put the Stone Cold Crows show together and be on a stage, we would like to be, in a position where there are people ready to see it, rather than do the old method where the music industry that we knew from 10 years ago in Canada, turns out it's a pretty big country with a lot of centralized population. So driving from place to place, long distances, and you just hope that there are going to be people there when you show up to play. Not always the best way for growing an audience. And some other countries in the world don't have that problem. Like if you were to tour the States, for example, you could play Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, New York's a huge city. You could do it twice, 3 times, New Jersey, and you'll have not really left one little pocket of area. So travel time and everything's cut down. It's not quite the same here in Canada. So we're looking at what we can do, and we're gonna use the internet. And that's, if you're watching this, you're watching this on the internet. So trying to grow YouTube subscribers, trying to grow social media following, trying to direct people to our website. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about today. Maybe you've noticed this little section of the podcast, and if you're interested, I've started to get messages from people who are actually just looking forward, at the very least, to know what kind of drink they can make. And that's a little bit like a side hustle, not getting paid for it. But today I would like to announce we have rebranded our website entirely, top to finish, and we've added a section called the Crowbar. Now, I'm sitting around in lockdown, and I'm a bartender, but that doesn't mean I've stopped bartending because I can't go to work. If anything, I've been creating drink recipes or sharing drink recipes, and it's time we decided to put that onto our website. Now, of course, aside from the fun localized central point that you can just go to our website now and get a bunch of different drink recipes you can check out, hopefully anybody interested in actually doing that, and if you've liked this part of the podcast, you can go back there. And every time people go back to our website, it starts to add web traffic. And maybe you listen to some music while you're there, maybe you don't. But it boosts us in search, and maybe down the road we'll get into ad affiliate marketing, where if I talk about something in a blog article or whatever, perhaps I recommend a beverage or a drinkware. There's ways you can monetize that. And musicians, especially in today's day and age where there's so much music out there in the world that you can have at all times wherever you are, it's a very competitive marketplace. And recently they just published, I think 82% of music revenue last calendar year came from music catalogs, like music that has already existed. So only 18% of new music is what made the revenue share of music. And that's not really good news for independent artists. So we're just looking at other ways to diversify. If we had a bigger song catalog, getting into music licensing, that's something I would love to explore down the road. I mean, our kind of music's not exactly what you're going to use on a commercial to sell something. Turns out, singing about death and destruction and corruption, not the best way to sell products to people. But there's always a place for music in the licensing game. So if you're a band, I suggest you check it out because there are opportunities out there. Factor is an organization that gives music grants. I've got time now, so let's sit down and write a Factor application. It might be free money from the government. That's something that Canada does actually that a lot of other countries don't do, is offer grants for musicians. So now is a good time to be looking at that. And why not, right, if you've got the time. So those are just some of the few things that we've been doing. Like I said, stay tuned because we do have some stuff coming up. So growing our mailing list, for example, direct email conversation with our fans is an underrated tool. And if you've been on our mailing list, you've probably noticed that we haven't sent a whole lot out yet. That is going to change 2022. We've got some stuff coming that we can't share just quite yet. But one step at a time, and right now the website has been revamped. We are working on building up our audience, particularly here in Canada. Sometimes you don't want to stretch yourself too thin. So if you are watching this and you're a new fan, go back and check out the old episodes or share the music if you like it. That's what we're asking to do. Of course, every little share helps us grow just a little bit, but we're expecting to be doing the work here. That is what we're trying to do. It's our job to try and get you interested versus we don't rely on you as a fan to go out there and do our job for us. But our other job is to make cool music, and we've got a lot in the works, and we're going to do our best to get it out there to you as soon as we possibly can, which means getting back in the studio, which means revenue. So we're going to build, and we're going to build, and we're going to build slowly but surely, but we're coming. 2022 is off to an interesting start, but it's not catastrophic. A catastrophe. Wow, that strawberry mint must be really tingling the old taste buds here. But it's there's been a little bit of a hiccup here and there, but it hasn't been terrible. And we're gonna make sure that by the end of the year, there's a lot more coming, and we are going to be ready when the world goes back to normal, because it will. So if you're down and out, like some of us have been, just know this. The world is going to go back to normal at some point, and we are going to be ready for it. So guys, check the Crowbar out if you want to have a delicious refreshment, whether in lockdown or not. There's a bunch of recipes on there. There's new ones. They're going to be coming every week. And there's a bunch that I haven't featured on this podcast yet, just for a little bit more diversity. So go over there and check it out. Subscribe to our mailing list while you're there. And as always, guys, remember, dare to be different and create cool shit. And I will see you next week with a new recipe and a new conversation. Cheers.